Welcome to the Diversity Pivot Podcast. I'm your host, Julie Kratz. I am thrilled you are here with us today. Our purpose is to share stories, ideas, and tools to help you on your diversity, equity, and inclusion journey. Let's meet this week's guest. Hello, listeners. Continuing on with some mini-sodes to share some hot topics we're hearing about with diversity in the workplace. So this week's topic, talking about why women are leaving corporate America and often to start their own businesses, and more importantly, how to support them as allies. So backstory on this, the workplace, the modern one that was designed post-World War II, 50s, 60s, was designed by men for men. And I think the last, certainly had the feminist wave in the 1970s, had quite a backlash in the 80s and even into the 90s, and somewhat of a resurgence in the 2000s and up to present day. You know, we have some cause for optimism with Me Too and some of the small wins that women have been getting. But here's the thing, the COVID pandemic literally took women's employment in the United States back to 1988 levels. So we erased over 30 years of forward progress. Now, we're still at a deficit. We still have about 500,000 women that have not returned to corporate America, but it has regained some traction. So it's not as bleak as it was a couple years ago, but it's still pretty not a positive picture. So if you're saying things are better for women, or this is not as big of a problem anymore, future generations, they don't have to worry about these things, just try hard, work hard, myth of meritocracy, that's not quite true. And so just to level set, we are still not at gender equality, and we're not predicted to be there for 135 years or so. And that's according to the research with Equality Can't Wait and Melinda Gates Foundation. Here's the thing, why are women leaving? Okay, so let's just back up and say, what are the reasons why women are leaving corporate jobs, especially here in corporate America? Well, we know that women are often more so the caregivers. So here in the U.S., 66% of primary caregivers are women. And women do, on average, 6 hours a week more of household labor. So if you think about that, the starting points for that and the extra amount of work that women are required to do in their homes, flexibility is obviously incredibly important. And flexibility is important for men too. But because of this deficit of household labor and caregiving shifts, it's much more important for women as caregivers. And it's notable, not all women are primary caregivers, not all women have children, not all women take care of, elders in their family. But because that stereotype is rooted in some facts, I think it's important to consider that we've built a workplace that presumed that women would be the caregivers, right? And so when the ideal worker is deemed to be always on, says yes to everything, answers emails right away, and sends a signal of who belongs and who doesn't, because women, just by default, are not as accessible because they have other responsibilities. Also, in research, we have found that women are more often to say the number one attribute of what they're looking for in their work is purpose. And so they want to feel compelled by the mission of an organization and feel like they're making the world a better place. Again, I feel like most humans identify with this, but women skew more so and are willing to give up more for purpose in the workplace. They're willing to make trade-offs about pay and benefits because they see the benefit of purpose more so. And I can identify with this. It was 8 years ago when I started my own business. I really struggled with purpose in the work I was doing. I struggled with belonging in male-dominated environments. I didn't feel heard. I certainly didn't feel seen, and I didn't feel valued, and I didn't feel connected to the organization's purpose. But when I started my own business, it was very easy to connect to a much deeper purpose. That's why, we're still seeing stagnant progression in corporate work environments that were not designed by women to work for women. So women are about half the workforce, but only a quarter of C-suite positions. We are still at a stagnant pay gap of 82 cents on the dollar, a number that's far worse for women of color. And women are promoted at a 14% lower rate than men. If you want more data on this, McKinsey, Women in the Workplace report, fascinating report that comes out annually. Their latest data is publicly available, so you can dive in if you're not believing me there. Now, one of the biggest challenges, and if you think about it, one of the things that's really holding women back now are microaggressions, and that's rooted in gender bias. Most of us have gender bias. 95% of folks, according to the implicit association test with Harvard, have some sort of gender bias. And these are problematic when they express themselves in behavior. So here's what happens to women in traditionally male-dominated work environments. They have their authority questioned. They're not even invited to social outings like golf and sports and drinks, etc. They're interrupted. They have their ideas hijacked or taken by others. They're mistaken for members of the administrative staff or asked to take notes and do work labor, household type of office work, and not getting credit for it. Or they're assumed they're not interested, they can't travel, they can't stay late, they don't want to be promoted. And if they step out of bounds on that gender tightrope, they're labeled as aggressive. So how can we help women? Rather than ignore these microaggressions, speak up. Listen to the stories of women in the workplace. Share that household labor and office housework. You refrain from advising and making the relationship about you. Make it about women in the workplace and more than just Women's History Month. Ensure all women get credit for their work. Don't let interruptions happen on your watch, and call in folks when they make mistakes. It's a chance to help somebody learn how to be better. Spread allyship initiatives. We really need men as allies, and we need more men engaged in the conversation. We've kind of flatlined from a men as allies representation perspective. Real allies do things. They take action like mentoring and sponsoring, and they invest in women-owned business. So we're losing women from a workforce that's likely to have labor shortages for many, many more years, even in a recessionary time. What can you do as an ally to speak up, amplify the voices of women, and more importantly, make sure that they're retained at a similar rate to the majority group, to men in the workplace? While the workplace was not designed by women to work for women, women will design new workplaces and design new businesses and continue to jump into entrepreneurship if we don't include them, if we don't listen, if we don't empathize, if we don't build workplace systems that work for all humans, regardless of caregiving status, regardless of gender identity, because your gender identity should not dictate your expected outcomes in the workplace and in any sphere of your life. So if you like this, dig in more. The full article on Entrepreneur is in the show notes. Dig into some of the data, mine those reports, and more importantly, share with others that you want to be better allies. You'll be better for it. They'll be better for it. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Allies are necessary for positive change. If you are on the journey to becoming an ally, we invite you to participate in our brand new Lead Like an Ally online program, or get a copy of our new book, Allyship in Action, available on Amazon. Both are helpful tools that meet leaders where they're at and help provide tools for professional and personal settings. Head over to nextpivotpoint.com to get started today.